My uncle had offered me to look after his house while he went on vacation with his family in South America. My aunt and cousin had already left in advance, while my uncle had to finish up some business first. Once he finished everything he had to do, he asked me to take care of the house for a few weeks. He knew how much I wanted to live alone, so he offered me this opportunity to experience it for the first time. He forbade me from inviting any friends over or hanging out in the yard too much. I didn't understand why, but I assumed he didn't want me outside too much, as the large amount of snow that had accumulated could cause an accident. After giving me many instructions on how to take care of the house, he left me a large amount of food in the refrigerator and then left. I must admit that, at the beginning, it was actually better than I expected. I didn't feel uncomfortable being alone, and I actually felt I could do whatever I wanted. Everything was going perfectly until the middle of the night. A noise woke me up. More surprised than scared, I got up quickly and looked around. There was nothing. Just the darkness of my uncle's room illuminated by the intense moonlight coming through the window. I looked out the window to see if it was snowing, and to my surprise, not only was snow falling, but it looked like there was a blizzard outside. Surprised, I stared outside, unaware of what was actually going on. I turned around quickly when I heard the same noise come from the front door downstairs. This was the moment my heart started beating faster. I thought possibly something had blown up against the door, but I wasn't sure. I went downstairs, turning on all the lights on the way, and looked out the peephole of the front door. Seeing nothing, I opened the door a crack, trying not to let the cold or snow inside. To my horror, there were footsteps leading straight to the door. I slammed the door shut and locked it, breathing heavily. Who would be outside in this weather? I said under my breath, looking around the house as if to figure out what to do next. I ran over to the back door, looking through the glass. It was too dark and snowy to see anything more than a few feet away, but through the snow, I could have sworn I saw a very small person walking away from the house. It looked like a kid, no older than 9 or 10. A brief lightening of the wind allowed me to see more clearly for a split second, and sure enough, there was definitely a kid walking around outside the house. I was scared, but also worried for the small child. I ran upstairs to get my phone, then called 911 to report the kid by my house. I stayed by the back window, looking out into the snowy darkness to see if the kids showed up again, but they were gone. When the cops showed up, I let them know the situation in more detail. We stood in the kitchen as I talked, but we were interrupted by a quiet knock at the front door. One of the officers told me to stay here while they both went to see who was at the door. As the officer opened it, that same child from earlier was revealed. An officer brought the kid inside, clearly worried, as the boy wasn't wearing a thick jacket or anything, just a light sweatshirt. The other officer stepped outside, looking around for anyone else, then closed the door behind him as he re-entered the house. The expression on the kid's face was hard to describe, as it just seemed totally blank. The officer was asking a lot of questions, like where his parents were and what he was doing, but the boy barely spoke and seemed to just be lost, as in lost in the head, not really understanding what was going on. It was also surreal, happening right in front of me, yet it didn't feel real at all. What kid just walks around in a blizzard in the middle of the night? Why did he knock on the door? Why was he alone and expressionless? We didn't get answers for weeks. By then, my uncle was back and no longer needed me to watch the house. Of the few words the boy spoke, he had told the investigators that the house I was at, my uncle's house, was where he lived. However, 2 weeks after I found him, another family positively identified the boy as their lost child from months ago. Keeping up with this news, my mind was spinning. But things continued to get stranger. Not even a month later, another missing kid was found sitting in the street in front of my uncle's house while he was on vacation again. Apparently, there's no connection between the two missing kids, but it seems a little too coincidental to me. It made me question everything. like why my uncle wanted nobody over and for me to stay out of the yard. Was he doing something I didn't know about? Why did he leave several days after his family left? Was he possibly keeping people somewhere? Obviously, I could be completely overthinking everything, but who knows? The cops checked the house after the first boy was found, and my uncle was compliant with everything. So it could be a great coincidence of 2 missing children being found outside his home, or it might not be a coincidence at all. Winter is my favorite season of the year. There's just something about the snow and holidays that puts me in a good mood. However, I live in a cold state, where heavy snowfall is common. Being a part-time DoorDash driver for almost 3 years, the snow made this job much harder. Roads often took a while to get plowed, and heavy snowfall would quickly cover them again. Despite the challenges, I still chose to drive on snowy days. Fewer drivers would be out, giving me access to more orders and bigger tips. Customers also tended to tip generously, knowing delivery in a blizzard was tough. It was mid-January when another night of heavy snow arrived. I couldn't start deliveries until after 7 p.m. due to my other job. But once I started, the roads were eerily quiet. My DoorDash app was offering high-paying orders. I completed 2 quick deliveries and was heading back before the snowfall worsened. Visibility was terrible, and the roads hadn't been plowed enough. My car had all-wheel drive, but even that wasn't enough. I slowed down at a stop sign and struggled to get moving again as my tires spun under me. After finally passing the intersection, another order popped up on my phone. I hesitated, then rejected it, deciding the roads were too dangerous. The street I was on wasn't far from the main town, so I drove slowly, hoping the main roads would be better. As I crept forward at 20 miles per hour on a 45 MAF road, something large appeared in the middle of the street. I slammed on the brakes, but my car slid and veered off the road into a thick snowbank. Thankfully, it was a low-speed crash, but my car was completely stuck. I stayed calm, turned on my hazard lights, and called roadside assistance. The dispatcher said someone would arrive in 15 to 20 minutes. Relieved, I leaned back and watched the snow falling outside my window. A few minutes later, I noticed a flickering light in my side mirror. A truck with orange caution lights pulled up behind me. I checked my phone. It had only been 4 minutes since my call. I assumed the driver must have been nearby. After a couple of minutes, I heard a door slam shut, followed by footsteps approaching my window. A man appeared, and I rolled my window down slightly. "Hi, sir. Do you need assistance?" he asked. "Yes, I called a few minutes ago. My car is stuck in the snow," I replied. "All right, let me take a look," he said, walking to the back of my car. I watched him in my rear-view mirror as he inspected the back of my car. Suddenly, I felt a blast of cold air as he opened my trunk. I turned to see him peering inside. "Sorry," he muttered, slamming the trunk shut. I found it odd, but I didn't question it. A few minutes later, he returned and asked for my keys. He also told me to step out of the car while he prepared to tow it. Feeling uneasy, I hesitated. Before doing anything, I called roadside assistance again. The same dispatcher answered. "Hey, I'm a couple of minutes away. Did you need something else?" My stomach dropped. If the real assistance driver was still on his way, who was this man? I awkwardly told the man outside my car that I needed a moment. He stood by my window, watching me intently. I rolled up my window, locked the doors, and tried to stay calm. The man immediately started knocking on my window, demanding to know what I was doing. His tone became aggressive as he tugged at the door handle. Panic set in as I realized I couldn't drive away. Then, I saw another man step out of the truck behind me. He was holding something in his hand and running toward my car. Just then, an extremely loud horn blared from behind, and bright lights illuminated my car. The two men froze, then ran back to their truck and sped away. It was the real roadside assistance truck. Two men stepped out and rushed over to check on me. They had overheard my call and arrived as quickly as possible. After the police arrived, I learned this was a common scam. These men targeted stranded drivers during snowstorms, pretending to offer help, only to rob them or steal their cars. I later suspected they might have placed the large object in the road to cause accidents. I'm grateful for how the events unfolded that night, but I'll never drive in such bad conditions again.